Okay, I think we're going to start our presentation. Thank you everyone who is joining us from our arts community. I want to start by thanking our partner who I know is on the call, Annette Jimenez Gleason, who works at the Rochester Area Community Foundation. The RACF has been helpful in gathering a lot of our arts and cultural organizations together and has been a partner in trying to get the word out about this funding as well as about our presentation today. So I'd like to walk through what we're going to go through today. I'm going to, first I guess I should introduce myself. My name is BJ Scanlon. I work in County Executive Bellow's office, and I am the person who will be working with you as we administer our arts grants to our mid-size arts organizations. Today's presentation will be two parts. We'll go over what the qualifications are for the arts organizations. We'll run through our frequently asked questions, talk a little bit about the history and of our arts funding and our current arts funding. Then we'll walk through the application in detail. We'll then open it up to a question and answer period where folks can either type their questions into the chat, and my colleague Megan McDermott will help us facilitate those questions, or you can simply raise your hand or turn your microphone on and ask a question when we get to the question and answer period. I'm not too particular if folks have a question when we're working our way through the application process, and it makes more sense to ask it then. Feel free to do that. I want everyone to know that we intend to present or to publish this presentation on our website. So if you do ask questions or you have anything that you say, that will be part of our public website as well, just so everyone is aware and that this presentation is being recorded so that future individuals can use it. Before we get started, does anyone have any questions? Otherwise, I'm going to jump right into our presentation. Great. Hearing none, I'm going to start sharing my screen, and I'm just going to ask for maybe a nod of confirmation. Do people see my screen? Yes, okay, I'm seeing a couple of nods of confirmation here. What we have here is monroecounty.gov. You can put in arts grants or arts grant, or you can type out the full executive-arts-grant. This is our main page for our arts applications where you can apply online. This was how you registered for the webinar, so most likely you have been here, or you can view our press release. This year, Monroe County is increasing or has increased the support for our arts and cultural community above and beyond what it had last year. County Executive Bellow 2 years ago went from having an arts and cultural budget, which was at $45,000 for mid-size arts organizations. Last year, it was at $500,000 to support both mid-size arts organizations and community festivals. And this year, we have expanded to $1.2 million to support mid-size arts organizations and community festivals. You'll notice that around $300,000 of that funding has been set aside to support 24 community festivals, and the remaining $900,000 will be supporting mid-size arts and cultural organizations this year. We want to go through what our qualifications and eligibility requirements are for mid-size arts organizations for fiscal year 2023. Organizations must have a significant presence in Monroe County, conducting at least 50% of its operation in Monroe County and maintaining a physical location in Monroe County. So this intends for some organizations that span multiple locations, you need to have a physical presence in Monroe County, and most of your business or programming needs to be done in Monroe County. And that is because the county is the funding source for this particular fund. Second, the organization must have been legally recognized for 1 year with a tax filing as a 501c3 organization or an LLC. In order to apply for this funding, you have to have at least a year established, and you have to have a tax filing because that's how we're able to confirm the size of your annual expenditures. The organization's primary mission must be directly related to arts and culture. So what that means is organizations have to be arts and culture as their own mission. We're not able to support the arts and cultural initiatives of organizations that have a larger mission. An example of that might be a school or a college that has an arts department or a dance department. That college is not able to apply if the organization itself, which would be the larger institution, has a larger mission. And we've had that question a number of times, but again, this is only to support organizations that have a direct arts and culture relation in their mission. This next requirement is an expansion from last year. Last year, organizations needed to have an annual operating budget or operating expenses between $100,000 and $1.5 million. After listening to our arts community, we were able to hear that there were some organizations that were a little bit smaller, and there were some organizations that were a little bit bigger that weren't able to meet the funding requirements that we had. So we've expanded that this year, and organizations are able to apply if they have operating budgets between $50,000 and $4 million. Now, those are hard and fast requirements. Unfortunately, if your operating budget, according to your tax return, of your most recent tax return was $49,000, you would not qualify, just as if it was $4,001,000. And that's true for all of these requirements. If you haven't been in existence for more than 1 year, you wouldn't qualify. If your mission is not directly related to arts and culture, you would not qualify. And if your business is not located within Monroe County, you would not qualify. The deadline for these applications will be Tuesday, September 5th, 2023 at 5:00 p.m. This is the day after Labor Day. So we wanted to give people an extra day after the holiday weekend to be able to get these applications in. We unfortunately cannot accept applications that come in after this time. Another question, can arts and cultural festivals apply for funding in 2023? Not this time. Last year, both were linked together. This year, there was a separate funding source for for festivals that has already occurred. The question, can I have a fiduciary organization apply on behalf of my organization? Unfortunately, no. All organizations must have their own legal standing, either as a 501c3 or an LLC with their own legal status. And there's a question about, will larger arts and cultural educational entities need to apply using this funding source? There are several organizations that are called out specifically in the budget. Those organizations will not need to apply for this funding and are not eligible to apply for this funding because they've already been named in the budget as funding recipients. If you have a question as to whether or not you are a funding recipient in the budget, you can reach out to me after this event and we can have a conversation. Most folks, I think, should know. The question is, how much money will arts organizations receive through mid-size support? So for this, we're not totally certain. With the expanded criteria and expanded dollar amount, we are going to need to see the number of eligible applicants, evaluate the responses, and determine what funding is available based on that. And it should just be noted that funding allocations received last year or in previous years don't necessarily reflect the same funding levels that you could see this year. It will all be subject to the results of this application. What if my organization's operating budget doesn't fall within $50,000 to $4 million? Again, we had spoken about that. Only organizations that have operating budgets that fall within this range will qualify. And the way we will determine that range is by the number that is submitted on your tax documentation. So you will need to have tax documentation in order to be eligible to apply. Again, community festivals have had another opportunity. Can individual artists apply for this funding? No, this funding is exclusively for arts and cultural organizations to support their operations. If arts and cultural organizations support artists that also qualify for this, they're able to use this money however they want for their organizational operations. And this again is non-restricted funding to help with the operational expenses of organizations. If you have questions and you don't want to ask them on this call, that's okay. You can reach out to me. Here's my email, here's my phone number. And we also want to note, if you have any needs filling out this application in another language, please reach out to our language access. Monroe County's website also has this Google translation feature where you can select any other language and it will translate the website into that language. And then you will be able to read it and be able to reach out to language access. We will work with anyone to make an accommodation if they need that. I also want to note that we have ASL interpreting on this particular call to ensure that anyone from the deaf or hard of hearing community is able to get this information. And we will also make sure that that is included on our website when we put it up. Right, with that said, we're going to run through the application. So we would ask, when you come, you'll need to apply online. I have already set up my account, so you will be given the option to log into your account and create an account. Once you do that, you'll be able to start a 2023 application. I have it as Monroe County as my organization and me as the individual. So you'll see that there are 6 sections located within this. The first is our eligibility requirements. Then we have our organizational information, financial information, organizational governance, the community economic and cultural impact, and finally, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we'll start by going to eligibility. For this, you need to answer those questions that we sort of went through in our original criteria. Are your organization's annual expenditures between $50,000 and $4 million? This is a required field. Yes. So you have to acknowledge that. Again, is your organization physically located in Monroe County and or at least 50% of your operations conducted in Monroe County? You have to be able to acknowledge that. If no, you don't qualify for the funding. Has your organization been legally established for 1 year as a 501c3 or other legal entity? Is your organization's primary mission related to arts and culture? Please note this means the main focus of the organization is arts and culture and does not include organizations for which arts and culture is one of several focuses of the organization. And we also need to know if any Monroe County employee or elected official within Monroe County is affiliated with the organization, either as an employee, officer, board member, director, paid contractor, or volunteer. Depending on their role in the organization, it may impact your ability to be funded. We'd need to check with our legal department to see what that would be. So if there is someone, we just need to know the name of that individual, their affiliation with the organization, and if they receive compensation in that role. So that is our eligibility requirements. And then we would be able to go to our organizational information. For this, you want to enter the legal name of your organization. No abbreviations. The name should be obtained from your articles of incorporation or the articles of the organization or the New York State Department of State. For this, you'll want to put in the formal organization, Monroe County. If it's known by another name, this would be where you could put a more colloquial or known name, but we need this in order to be able to put forward in a contract. We ask that you share your organization's website. If you have received funding from the county in the past, we would be looking on that website to see if there is recognition of the county as a funder, and similarly with your social media channels. So whatever social media channels you use, we want to see if the county has been acknowledged on any of them as a funder. We also like to see if the organization has updated their website with regular information or their social media with their regular contact information. We ask that you acknowledge if the organization received funding from Monroe County in the previous year and the county is recognized on the organizational website or social media. So that's where you would click that, no, or if you did not receive funds. The point of contact person is whoever is the person that we should be reaching out to get information. If we have questions on your application, if we're working our way through processing payments, you'd want to put the name, title, pronouns, phone number, and email of that individual, as well as the business address. And so that's where where the business is located. And then, is the place of business address different than the place of operation? Yes. If that's the case, let us know where the actual business is. Some people may have a business office that is separate from the actual office where the public or individuals may go. So sometimes organizations, the person who's the signatory might not be the individual who's filling out the application. If that's the case, we're asking for you to fill out the name of the signatory. So that would be the person who could sign legal documents on behalf of the organization, the president, the CEO, managing member, or sole member. And that person's name must be as it is shown on their government identification. If it's the same as the contact person up here, go ahead and put that same information in twice. And this is how we're going to be able to get in contact with people. It's also going to be how we write up contracts using that information as our contact. So we want to move on to our financial information. So this is what we're looking at for the organization to provide us on their financials. Have you received funds from Monroe County between January 1st of 2022 and December 31st of 2023? If that's a yes, we ask you to give the dollar value so that we're able to see how much that is. Similarly, this year, if you've received funds from January 1st, 2023, let us know yes, and let us know the dollar value. We are going to need the total amount of your organization's 2022 actual budget, not including capital funds. So that will be the same number that you would have reported on your tax documentation. This is where we'll need to see the total operating budget. Then we're also wondering if you would include the total amount of your organization's approved budget for this year, 2023, whatever the variance is. We're going to ask, what is your federal tax identification number? You'll need to be able to put that in. That allows us to look up and match, enables us to check on your tax records and make sure that they are all in line. Not all organizations have a January to December fiscal year, so sometimes you may be spending funds in between years. This helps us understand when your fiscal year is, so just let us know when that is. The next pieces are how we're going to start to evaluate organizations. And this is letting us know sort of what your abilities to utilize and report on government funds are. Monroe County is not here to be the arbiter of what is and is not art. What we are here to do is be the arbiter of who is responsible, and what organizations are putting forth responsible efforts with taxpayer dollars to be able to provide arts and cultural services in the community. So we're asking if your organization has accumulated an operating surplus, a deficit, or neither. If you're unsure, you might want to talk with your tax professionals or your treasurer to help you with some of these questions. If you have a surplus, we're asking for the dollar amount, the deficit, the dollar amount. If it's neither, then there isn't a dollar amount one way or the other. We're asking if you have an annual report. If you do, we would like to see that report, and we're asking that you upload a copy of it. Your operating budget. If you have an annual operating budget, please upload a copy of your operating budget in order for us to be able to review that and see how it aligns with the other information you've shared. Do you have your operating budget reviewed or audited by a CPA? If you do, that's a positive thing we want to see. Please share with us that review. And then this, you need to attach a copy of your 990, 990EZ, 990PF, or 990N, or any tax filing you do with the IRS. So these first 990s are related to nonprofit organizations. If you are not a nonprofit, if you're an LLC, you would need to share with us whatever your tax filing is. and you must provide a copy of this document in order to qualify for funding. If you don't submit a copy of this document, you will not be eligible. So you need to upload your IRS filing in order to be eligible. Does your organization have outstanding property taxes? Yes or no? We recognize that some of our nonprofit partners will not, but if you do have outstanding property taxes, that's a thing we need to know here as well. So that concludes the financial section, or the financial information of our application. The next is organizational governance. So this is where we're able to look at the structures that the organization has and how they are able to create and sustain themselves, and to see sort of the strength of the organization. Again, we're asking for your mission statement. We want to make sure that it aligns with the arts and cultural side of things, that it's not a larger mission. Does your organization have bylaws? If they do, we'd like to know when was the last date that your bylaws were reviewed. You can put in the date there, and then we'd like you to upload a copy of those bylaws. Any organization that has a conflict of interest, that's something we like to see. You'll get points in that regard. So you'll say yes if you have a conflict of interest policy. What's the date of the most recent policy adoption? Are board members, boards of directors, or key staff required to fill it out? If they are, say yes. Have all board members filled it out? So the requirement and the actual follow through. Those are things we would like to see as well. And then a copy of your conflict policy. Similarly, with the whistleblower policy, we're asking that organizations that have that let us know the adoption date of the policy, and if board and key staff are required to fill it out, and have they all filled it out. Those are all things that reflect positively on the application and are able to make a stronger piece for you. Next, we move to the community and economic, or community economic and cultural impact. So for this, we want to make sure that you do have a physical presence in Monroe County. You can see we're trying to ensure that we have all of our eligibility requirements multiple places in this form. How many days a year is your space open to the public? So for this, we're asking for a numerical date, 1 to 365. This means if somebody shows up to your facility to participate, are you open once a week? Then you would put roughly 52. If you're open Monday to Friday, you would do 5 times 52. So this just we're trying to see the amount of time you're open to the public. And this would mean if you have classes at that time, if you have exhibitions that people can see, if you're putting on performances, the times that people will be coming into your space to engage with your service or your product. We're asking for a total attendance number in 2022. How many people came to your space, engaged with your product, your service? Sometimes people will use ticket sales if you are a space that sells tickets to have people come. If you're a gallery or a space, how many admissions you sold. This is sort of up to you to determine what your attendance is, but using the metrics that make most sense to your organization. How many full-time staff does the organization have? This can be a whole or a part number. Maybe you have, actually this one probably should be a whole number if it's full-time. So how many full-time staff do you have? Part-time staff is contract employees, people on part-time. Those are all eligible to be put in here. And then how many unpaid staff or volunteers does the organization have? So some organizations rely heavily on volunteer support, and we want to know what the makeup of that is. Is this a robust organization with a significant number of people, or is it a smaller organization with 2 or 3 people doing most of the work? That's good to hear because it lets us know what the reach is and what the community buy-in is with those organizations as well. What's the organization's minimum wage per hour? So for this, we're asking not for salaried people, but if you have a per hour employee, what is the lowest wage that you pay a per hour employee. We are we want to make sure that we're seeing, what the economic impact is. If you're hiring people, are they making minimum wage? Are they making $15 an hour? What's the minimum wage for that for your organization? The next series of questions are about programming targeted specifically towards certain populations. We're trying to see what our organizations are offering. This isn't necessarily to say, do people from these populations engage in your programming, but do you have specific programming that targets these populations? So we want to see if you have a program geared toward youth, which people under 18, you'll select yes or no. No, you won't have a follow-up question. If the answer is yes, we'll ask you to name and describe the program that engages youth and how many young people does the program serve each year. So if you run a program that serves young people, you would say, the name of my program is this. This is what we do in the program. If it's a theater, for instance, we run a theater camp every summer. It's named this. During that, we teach kids about the business of theater. We teach them acting. We put on a play. Each year, we serve around 50 kids in this process. So that's a little bit of a narrative that you would provide. And the same is true for the next groups of demographics. Does your organization offer programming targeted toward older adults? So that's individuals 55 or older. If that's the case, we ask you to put in that same information and let us know those details. Similarly, does your organization offer programming targeted toward veterans, those who have served in the military or armed forces? If it's a yes, you would then fill in that other information. Then we have programming targeted toward individuals with disabilities. If that's a yes, you'll give us more information. If it's a no, you just move on to the next question. Does your organization offer programming targeted toward Black, Indigenous, or people of color? If that's a yes or a no, fill that out and put it in. Does your organization offer programming targeted toward LGBTQIA+ people? Yes or no, put that in. Does your organization offer programming targeted toward deaf, hard of hearing, or non-native English speakers? Again, you'll answer those questions. And does your organization offer programming targeted toward low-income individuals or offer scholarships or free services to individuals based on income? We ask that you fill out the same information for that. Finally, does your organization offer free admission or programming to the community? And if it does, then you can let us know a little bit more. Maybe on Thursdays, your gallery is open for free. Maybe you have tickets free to children under 12. Whatever it is for your organization or the arts and cultural institution that you work with or for, let us know what that free programming is to the community. Next, we're asking a little bit about how you and your organization track your own measures of success. So we want to see that your organization is thinking about how the work they're doing is impacting the community and how it's successful. So what does your organization do to determine its success? Do you use qualitative or quantitative measures? So if you use a qualitative measure only, we're going to ask you to talk a little bit more about that. So maybe you say, we take in, or when we work with individuals, we want to see them grow in the following ways, and this is how we decide whether they do. We have them fill out this survey, we do this, we talk to them, we're able to see how this works. Or maybe you say, we try to reach individuals in different places, and when we find that we're seeing more and more people come back, that's good, and this is how we articulate it, this is how we determine it's successful. Alternatively, if you use quantitative data, what is that? We decide each year we want to make sure that we sell 60% of our tickets to our audience. And if we do that, then we are able to, or 60% of our theater seats. If we do that, then we know we're being successful, and this is how we track it. We want to see our attendance raised by X% each year, and that's how we can tell if we're successful. And again, if you use both, we ask that you just select this and give us some examples of how you do it. It doesn't have to be every measure of success you use, just one or two for each qualitative or quantitative. Okay. Then I will come to our diversity, equity, and inclusion tab, which is our final piece of this particular application. Does your organization have a diversity, equity, and inclusion plan? If it does, we'd like to see a copy of it, be able to review it, and that's something that we look positively on in the application. And so the next piece is staff diversity. So we ask, how many paid staff does the organization have? And with regards to gender, what are the paid staff's demographics? Female, non-gender conforming, genderqueer, agender, male, another gender not specified above. And if you track this information, we'd like to have this information. Similarly with race or ethnicity, we ask for the paid staff's demographics. And we have categories of American Indian, Asian American, Pacific Islander, Black and/or African American, Hispanic, 2 or more races, white, another race not specified above. And then we ask, please provide additional information on your staff's diversity outside of gender, race, and ethnicity. This can include demographic categories like sexual orientation, gender identity, ability, veteran status, primary language spoken, or other notable demographics. You don't have to answer this, but we encourage you to if there is additional diversity on your staff that is not reflected in those questions. Similarly, with your board or leadership, we know that not all organizations have a board of directors. If you're an LLC, we're looking toward your leadership team, your senior leadership team, and we ask those same questions with regard to gender and with regard to race and ethnicity. And then once you're able to do that, you would be able to submit the application. You can download a printable version yourself. And once you submit the application, it'll come to us for review. So that is the basics of our application. And I'd like to take a moment to open it up to questions. Megan, were there any questions in the chat?
Yes, there were. There were a number of them. We had a question from Gretchen Anthony, who had asked, if the arts group does performances throughout Monroe County, depending on who hires them, what should they put in place of location if they don't have their own space?
I would put whatever your office location is. So you need to be able to receive mail somewhere or documents somewhere. That would be what we would we'd utilize. So your business office, not necessarily your performance or art space, but the place that we could connect with the business.
That's already would be on the application. I'm sorry, BJ. I just wanted to clarify this. But you asked for the site location for where things are done. I think that was in the first section on this. And so that's what I'm asking about. You know, we go where we're hired. We don't have a performance space.
So are you saying that does the organization have public accessibility or?
Sure, it depends on the site. You know, most schools have it, most libraries have it. I can't guarantee all of them have it, but 98% sure.
Gretchen, let me get back to you on that because I think for the most part, we were assuming organizations would have spaces and not necessarily just be for hire to go to different locations. So I'll get back to you on that question.
Thank you.
Sure. And additionally, there was a question in the chat too. Are contract employees included in this application as part-time? And then will there be a word count on the explanations?
I would include contract employees. I would say there is a word count where that is noted. If you find that you need more space and there is the opportunity, just email me and I'll be able to work with you to add an addendum to your application.
Can organizations use 2021 or 2022 data? if necessary?
Who asked this?
From Jim Benjamin.
Jim, could you give me a little bit more information? Do you mean for tax records? Do you mean for
Yes.
like,
Yes.
I would say whatever your most recent available is. So for tax records, if you do not have a 2022 tax record, you just need to indicate that you are still in the process of finalizing that tax document. You don't have it available yet, but our 2021 records indicate this, and just make sure you note that so we're aware. And also, given the guidelines with the dollar value, if you need to make sure that you're even within that 2022 area, that you qualify with the between $50,000 and $4 million. But if you only have a 2021 record available because your 2022 tax documents aren't finalized, you are able to use whatever your most recent tax documentation are.
Thank you.
Good. And a question from Marion Romig. Can you save the application and submit it at a later date? Or do you have to complete it at once?
100%, you may save it. You'll see when you go on the actual application. I'll share my screen again briefly. So on the application, you'll see at the end, save and continue. When you save, it'll keep things updated. You'll see how it'll tell you if you have things opened, errors, and all that. So when you come back to the application, it should work. If you want to give that a test, fill out a portion of the application and then come back yourself and make sure that it's still working for you.
All right, very good. Jill Zabinski-Byrne has also asked, is there a place in the application you can include more information about our organization and what we will be using the funds for?
Like I said, the county is not trying to be the arbiter of what is and isn't art. We're looking for organizations in our community that have an arts and cultural focus. And this funding is used specifically for its unrestricted operational dollars, which we all know is sort of the holy grail of funding. So we are here to support organizations that we think have a solid mission, a solid organizational structure, that have an economic and cultural impact, that have embraced diversity, equity, and inclusion. So sharing what services you are providing, that's stuff that if it's in your annual report, if it's how you want to demonstrate that you've received county funding and you have county acknowledgements, that's where you can show that. We're not specifically asking for the programs and services that you do, unless they maybe fall into one of those larger categories targeting specific groups.
And there are a couple of questions here from Virginia Verhagen. Her organization puts on events in schools, libraries. They're renovating a permanent space. How do you determine how many days you're open to the public? Then they also contract with artists to hold classes. Should those individuals be included in the staff count when it's really variable? And what is the grant period? When can you claim or get the funds for?
So we're looking, I'm going to try to see if I can get all of these. The days open are the number of days that you have public events, public accessibility. So I would count any day that you are meeting with people or you have people or programming going on, any day that people can access the space. That would be days open. We contract with artists to hold classes. Should they be included in the staff count? I don't think individual artists that are hired once would necessarily be, like if it's for a one-time workshop, I don't know if that would necessarily be a staff person, if you wouldn't consider them part-time, if they're not like receiving a paycheck. I think part-time would be folks who would receive a paycheck more. If you do have the ability, I would note how many contract employees you have, if that's a significant number that is different than your part-time employees. And then the grant period. So the information you should be using is from 2022. So typically January to December of 2022. If your only records are with your fiscal year and your fiscal year has a different start and end, I would use that last complete fiscal year.
I think what she's asking is what's the anticipated time these monies would be awarded to us?
Okay, so we are looking at reviewing these applications in the early part of September, hopefully providing notification and starting the process for award and acceptance in October.
Very good. And Gretchen Anthony is also wondering if the programs are held in schools or for schools, is that considered open to the public? Or are you just looking at performances in libraries or parks or more open areas?
I would say that you are able to count those performances, Gretchen. I don't think that's any different than people selling tickets to a theater show or something like that. If you are doing a space, if you're going to a space to provide services in a space that's been hired, that would be an eligible count.
So, all right, but I need a little more clarification, and I think a few others on this call also do. If a school hires us to come into that school to workshop or do a performance, is that considered a public spot?
Yeah, I would say for the how many days are you open to the public, that is a varied question. And if your performance model is such that you are being hired, if you are hired for one of those days and you're doing a public presentation, you're engaging with people outside your organization in that public setting, you would be able to count that as one day. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
And that looks like all I have in the chat right now. I don't know if there's other questions.
I'd open it up to anyone else who has any questions. And if you are unsure, you're going through the application and something strikes you and you don't have that question right now, just give me an email or a call and I'll get back to you with information as soon as I'm able.
I guess I have one last question. I was going to type this, but anyway, is there a section in the application where the organization can request like a suggested dollar amount?
That's not how we're awarding funding this year. So we aren't going to necessarily be able to identify the amount of funds available until we're able to see sort of the entire application and what folks have applied, what funding is available, and who qualifies. Certainly, if there is, certainly I think since this is non-restricted funding, you can use it for anything, but the requested amount isn't something that we would be taking into consideration.
And there was an additional question. Could you repeat the date the awards would be made by, BJ?
Yeah, certainly. We are, our last application will be received September 5th by 5 o'clock. Our intent is to review the applications in the month of September and make and notify organizations within that beginning portion of October. There's not a specific date yet, but I would say within an October timeframe, folks would be notified about awards. And at that point, we would begin the process of filling out, the paperwork, the contract stuff. And at that point, you'd work closely with someone on our purchasing team and in our finance office, and I'd help facilitate that. But our purchasing side and finance team are really the subject matter experts on getting those funds dispersed to people. Great,
and thank you, BJ. I know you had told people to email you with with questions, what is your email address?
Sure. It is Robert, Robert, Scanlon, Scanlon at monroecounty.gov. It is also on the website and at the bottom of every page of the application. So you will see it pretty easily there.
Very good. And I think I'm out of questions in the chat and wonder if anyone else has questions. It looks like we're ready to wrap up then.
All right. I want to thank everyone for attending. I just want to once again thank County Executive Bello for making such a strong commitment to the arts. I think we're all excited to see more funding going to the arts community. And this is a significant increase from years past, and the county is really taking a strong role as a funder for some of our smaller and mid-sized arts organizations. I'm always open to feedback. We didn't do one of these presentations last year, and we heard from the arts community that some people had difficulty with the application. People didn't understand things. And rather than just have static text, we wanted to make sure we had, for people who maybe are better at learning through this visual and auditory way, we gave this option to our arts community as well. We were also able to change the funding values from the 100,000 to 1.5 million. And this year it's 50,000 to $4 million. So we're trying to be responsive and shift with the needs of our arts community, recognizing that this is a brand new program. We are changing and growing as we learn from you, and hopefully we're going to continue this great partnership. I see Kristen Walker has asked when the recording will be available for replay. Megan and I are going to be figuring that out probably tomorrow, and we're going to be posting it to the website. It should be up by the end of the week. All right. Last call for questions. Seeing none. Thank you all for attending. If you do have questions after this meeting or as you're filling out the application, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll get back to you as soon as I'm able.
Very good. Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you.